a webinar of Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, YABA, Lagos. This is YABA Voice, the official platform that is aimed at disseminating information to the public on mental health matters. Today promises to be really, really exciting and instructive because we are dealing with something that is pertinent, not just pertinent, it's affecting, it cuts across everyone. We're talking about the issue of security in Nigeria. Before we go deep into the discussion for today, the medical director and the arrowhead of the YABA Voice, Dr. Oloche Adole, is here to welcome us formally to this webinar and to also tell us more about what we'll be doing today and also to introduce the speakers to us. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone on the platform. I welcome you to today's edition of our regular webinar by YABA Voice on mental health issues. YABA Voice is a platform for mental health education, advocacy, and community outreach. It is a platform of Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, YABA Lagos, through which the hospital creates awareness and educates the populace on mental health issues. And for us this morning, today's topic is insecurity and mental health, implications and solution. Implications and solution. And as we all know, when you talk of mental health, right? Insecurity is a state of being open to danger or threats, or simply put, lack of protection. And exposure to any danger or threat of any danger can result into physical and psychological trauma, with its attendant effect on mental health. Recently, the level of insecurity has increased all over the world, especially in Nigeria. The insecurity index for the first half of year 2021 shows approximately 32 deaths per day and 17 persons being kidnapped on daily visits, and all these are related to security issue. So to do justice to today's topic, our seasoned expert in the house, seasoned expert in mental health and security issue. The first on the list is Dr. Oloche Adole. He's a consultant psychiatrist in the Nigerian Army and is a colonel. Dr. Adole had his elementary school in Pennsylvania, USA, where he obtained his basic medical degree from University of Jos. He also had a fellowship of National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria and a membership of the West African College of Physicians. He is a UNODC certified expert on drug addiction. Over the years, he has supervised and commanded several military medical units and missions in Nigeria and Sudan. Currently, Dr. Adole is the commander and chief consultant psychiatrist at the 82nd Division of Nigerian Army Medical Services, Enugu. He is a member of Technical Working Group of the Ministry of Defense. The second speaker for today is a seasoned clinical psychologist, Dr. Damilola Olayinka-Aliu, and is a lecturer at Olabisi Onubanje University in Ogun State. She holds Masters of Science and Doctor of Philosophy in Clinical Psychology from the Prestigious University of Ibadan. She has attended several seminars and workshops locally and internationally. She is a researcher with many academic publications in reputable journals, and she's the founder of the Peer Center of Hope for Children with Autism. With these two seasoned experts in the house this morning, I want to encourage you to kindly relax and listen to our mental health expert as we promise you a rewarding session of today's seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that arousing welcome. The medical director had introduced the concept of what we'll be doing today to us. We're looking at mental health and the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Quite a lot of people have reported several issues emanating from this seemingly issue that we are talking about today. Our seasoned expert has also been introduced to us. Dr. Adole will start off the conversation for us this morning and is going to share his mind or share his thoughts to us on what is it exactly that we need to understand when we're talking about mental health and the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Dr. Adole, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, sir, and good morning, everyone. And thank you very much, sir, for your introduction. It was very kind of you, sir. Well, I would like also to, first of all, look at the general issue of insecurity. We know that insecurity can come in various forms. It can be in form of wide-scale humanitarian crisis, or even immediate emergency situations affecting populations, individuals, or families. It can also affect communities, and these often lead to breakdown of cohesion and also social institutions. Naturally, when such breakdowns occur, we have challenges with even the institutional facilities available for coping with emergencies. While insecurity occurs in various parts of the world in various forms, and I must also say that it also have a lot of similarities in different parts of the world. Now we have a global village based on our interconnectivity. So what happens somewhere naturally affects every other place that are connected. In Nigeria, we have been confronted with issues of robbery and other similar criminality that is common across the world. Then on top of this, we also have issues of banditry or castle rustling, depending on which side or which group is affected. We have wide-scale kidnapping in different parts of the country, more so in some areas than in other areas. And then in some cases, kidnapping even from homes in urban centers, in addition to kidnappings along major highways. We have issues of insurgency in the Northeast and also militancy in various areas. Not to mention issues of communities hitherto living peacefully among themselves, turning against themselves. So there are so many different forms of insecurity, and these various forms affect the individual specifically, as well as the people that learn or hear about them, either through the social media or through the mass media. Now, permit me to mention a definition of insecurity by Belland in 2005, which was also re-echoed by Achumba in 2013, that's Achumba et al. And they said insecurity is the state of fear or anxiety stemming from a concrete or alleged lack of protection or inadequate freedom from danger. But I would like us to look at insecurity as a breach of peace, predictability, or tranquility affecting religious, civil, social, economic, political, and even physical life, stemming from or resulting in conflicts, destruction of property and lives, and also denying people the ability to realize potentials, cope effectively, or to be productive and make satisfying contributions to their community. I know that many of us here might have at one time or the other thought twice about whether it was safe to travel even to our respective villages or communities. And these can affect even our ability to make meaningful contributions in those communities. So I would like us to look at the insecurity generally in that, context. Now, if you juxtapose this context with the definition of insecurity by the World Health Organization and other major bodies, it will become clear how these can easily affect psychological integrity. The United Nations Development Program also emphasized that insecurity must be viewed from both the immediate and also the chronic aspects of threat. Immediate threats obviously are the immediate traumatic issues, while the chronic issues include threats revolving around hunger, disease, and repression. These all provide various bases for insecurity. The World Health Organization stated that mental health is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. This easily ties to the issues of insecurity affecting these functions. The US Surgeon General also defined insecurity as a state of, mental health, as a state of successful performance of mental functions, resulting in productive activities, fulfilling relationships with people, and the ability to adapt to change and to cope with adversity. Obviously, when we are seriously challenged in an environment of insecurity, if in a situation where the next day becomes becomes suspect, our ability to safely take our children to school because of kidnappings, widespread kidnapping in school becomes difficult. Those things naturally have a subliminal effect on our general thought processes. Additionally, it's been known that insecurity and its mental health effects are more prominent amongst females. Females are known to have feel more psychological impact of insecurity. It's also important to emphasize that insecurity must be looked at, and the psychological effects must be looked at beyond just the victim. The temptation is to always focus on PTSD and other things, but we also have the wider society being affected. Children, the elderly, disabled, and other vulnerable populations are also more widely affected. Now, the statistics show that certain types of insecurity even cause more distress and psychological sequelae. For instance, the death of an immediate loved one, a son or a daughter, the kidnapping of any of these will have a greater impact on the psychological outcomes. Food insecurity is another very major issue. Comparing food insecurity and job insecurity, some studies have shown that food insecurity, while it increases the risk of anxiety by 257%, job insecurity does that only to the degree of 32%. In world psychiatry, we also know that 10% of people who experience traumatic events will have serious mental health problems, and another 10% will develop behavior that will hinder their ability to function effectively. There are several ramifications to this, which I believe we will continue to elaborate upon as our discussion goes on. Thank you very much for providing me the opportunity to give this introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Adole, for that very interesting background that you have given to our discussion today. And you know why he was talking, he just hit on something very, very important. And it's like the fear out there of people even taking their children to school. Gone are the days you want to leave your child in school as, oh, he's been taken care of. You don't even know what will happen. Some few weeks ago, there was a report from my child's school that they had gunshots. And, you know, I was here at work. The fear was just so palpable. And later when I got home and I called, what happened? They said, oh, they had gunshots. They took them to the library. They asked every one of them to lie down. They didn't even know what was going on. But the most important thing is everybody just lie down so that there won't be stray bullets or any other thing. And then, okay, get ready. The next day, go to school. My son said, no, I'm not going. I'm staying at home. And, you know, we had to just start working on him before we could get him to go even the third day. They had to call from his school that they were expecting him. I said, let's go. Everybody is back there. Nothing is going to happen. But that event alone, you know, it was, even for me that wasn't there, you could imagine what was going on in my mind. And so what we had opened our eyes to today is something a lot of Nigerians are going through. You might not have had relatives who have been kidnapped, but the truth is, associated fear is just huge. You just hear your eyes got widened, and then we're going to go more on the mental health issues as we move on in this discussion this afternoon. But please note that you can send in your comments and your questions into the chat box, and then we're also streaming live on Facebook. And so if you can't join us here, you can join us on the Facebook, and then you will also enjoy what we are doing here. We'll try to take comments also from the Facebook as we move on. And so we'll move on to the second speaker today, Dr. Damilola Olayinka-Aliu. Also will be sharing our thoughts on this important topic that we're considering this afternoon. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, the moderator. I would love to appreciate the hospital management for giving me this opportunity to hear my view and my thoughts on the issue of security situation and the psychological impact it has on the mental health of people generally. I would also love to appreciate Dr. Adole for laying good background information on the subject at hand. According to WHO, psychological health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her potential and is able to cope with normal stresses of life, able to work productively and meaningfully to his or her environment. Like he said, insecurity is feeling of uncertainty, feeling of unsafe that creates a form of anxiety in the mind of the people. Coming from the angle of a clinical psychologist, in understanding the impact of this insecurity on mental health, I would love to explain it looking at it from the concept of two psychological theories, and that is the stress response theory according to Horowitz, 1986, that states that the relationship has been found between traumatic events and human sanity. When people go through trauma, either primary trauma or secondary trauma, when we talk about primary trauma, we are talking about people who have actually experienced the event of insecurity, either kidnap, bandits, armed robbery, of whichever form directly. Whereas for those of us that live every day praying to God, asking that we should not or we will not experience such, are also experiencing secondary trauma. Because every time we watch it on our social media, where people are robbed, where bomb blasts happen, where people are kidnapped, and it also affects our own safety in one way or the other, a sense of safety in one way or the other. So going back to the stress response theory, it says that individual reaction to any traumatic event occurs at two levels. There is what we call cognitive reaction or response. People respond, their thoughts start changing, and this could come in form of intrusive thoughts that happen or that comes to them, often sense of danger at every point in time. You want to go out or you're about embarking on journey, and even going to school now. Impaired memory could also result. For people that have experienced this trauma directly, they could have this feeling of denial, not believing that they have lost their loved ones, flashbacks and confusion from all angles. And all this happens at what? At the cognitive level. There is also an emotional reaction. Most time when people go through a sense of insecurity, there's a breach of insecurity to their privacy, they could experience what we call shock, a kind of numbness, fear, anxiety, helplessness, particularly when they are not getting the kind of protection they expect to get from the government. Depression could also happen, and loss of interest in pleasurable activity. A lot of people, due to insecurity situation in Nigeria, they've seriously reduced their pleasure-seeking behavior. Now, most people have reduced the time they hang out and they come in on time. The second theory that I would use to buttress that, the sense of insecurity or the psychological impact of insecurity on people is what I refer to as what? Chartered assumption. And this chartered assumption theory was developed by Janov Bauman, 1992. The theory believes that the people say the world as kind. Everyone, we believe the world is kind, We came into the world believing the world is kind and benevolent, that the world is meaningful, and that we have a sense of worthiness. But the worldview aims to offer individual with this meaning. But when you experience traumatic events, this thoughts or procedure or thinking process changes. The world is no longer perceived as benevolent or kind, or do they perceive themselves as competent or secured the way they are expected to be. And the implication of all this is it results in people having this feeling of confusion, they feel defenseless, awareness of anxiety, and a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder issue will start coming up. And this can put people on a state of hypervigilance, which is what most people are experiencing now in the country. We overreact to even sound in our environment. We tag every statement as having a form of insecurity, breach, or the other. And all these are unhealthy for our mental health. How do I manage the situation? I will encourage people to go into a process of emotional regulation. How do you self-regulate? Emotional regulation is a form of, is one of the concepts of emotional intelligence. You go through the process of shock if you have experienced it directly. Okay, we are talking of people who have gone through the primary trauma now. Go through the process. If you need to cry, cry. It's all the process of healing. Then you bring, after a while, you have to bring yourself to a point of homeostasis, which is this point of balance, where you can reason and you make use of positive affirmations, some relaxation technique, meditation. You bring yourself back into your body by quieting some of these unhealthy thoughts that goes on in our mind. You focus on what is and not what if. I think at this point, we all need to move around with what is. What is around me is the safety. Let's leave the point or move away from the point of what if I'm being kidnapped on my way to work. Okay, if we live with this sense, it's going to cause a lot of damage to our mental health. Believe you will get through, we will all get through this overwhelming insecurity situation like we have always gone through difficult situation in our life. And when you are done with this, work with your grief. For those that have experienced losses, work with your grief hand in hand with a sense of gratitude. Okay, and when you're able to do this, people usually find themselves at the point of ability to talk. They are ready to talk. They can share their experience freely without crying. They can share their experience freely with the people without feeling too bad. But if there are residues of emotional issues that they are unable to handle, emotional issues that is beyond your window of tolerance, this is when you will have to talk to professionals. We talk about the clinical psychologists or mental health practitioners that have been trained to handle that. Okay. I have recommendations for the country, but I think I would take that in the course of the discussion so that I will not take much of our time. Thank you very much for giving me your time and attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Damilola Olayinka-Aliu, for that brilliant delivery. You know, when she was talking about all of this, she made a long list of impaired memory, denial, flashback, helplessness, for anxiety, depression, reduced. Nobody wants to go out of the house. You want to just stay there, even if there is a function out there. You want to be careful of how people see you. You have to be careful of what people think about you now. And that in itself, it's making a lot of people to feel helpless and not even able to live their life and find fulfillment. We had a definition of World Health Organization earlier on. And, you know, it's like we're not able to actualize ourselves and really come out and even just be ourselves. And then again, one important thing that she mentioned earlier was the fact that when she was talking about the chartered assumption, and she said hypervigilance, overreaction. Some few weeks ago, I was leaving my house. I came out of the gate and, you know, and then the next thing I saw somebody walking down. I don't know where it was going to, but the next thing was my alarm started ringing. My mental alarm just went off. The next thing is I ran back inside. And my husband was like, what was pursuing you? I said, I don't know. I don't really know what was pursuing you. But just that my mental alarm was, I didn't come out until the man had left. And now what my decision is, I don't want to come to work late. But I won't leave my house until I can see the next person on the street, as in I can see you clearly. And that's some of the challenges that we will need to be able to. Dr. Olayinka-Aliu, we'll still come back to you because there's something I want to take you on. But I want you to be thinking about that before I come back to you. And that's the fact that you said we should focus on what if and not what if. And you know what came to my mind when you said that is the fact that in the face of seemingly constant news, it's difficult to start focusing on what is. When it's like every day the news you hear is 43 have been kidnapped, 100 have been taken away. This. Somebody will share the news of how she was going. Just yesterday, I heard about a woman who had to start banging the window of the car that she entered, and thank God, somebody was there to rescue. You know, it's just a whole lot to take in because I wanted to be able to help a lot of us. Sincerely, you need to help a lot of us deal with all of this. So we'll come back to you in the course of this discussion. Let me go over to Dr. Adole. Dr. Adole, a lot of mental health situations now. I know anxiety, depression, and quite a lot of things, and people are presenting. What do you think we could do? How could we manage all of those things? Are there still thoughts that you want to share with us, even on this topic of discussion this afternoon? Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that, for instance, this kind of forum or fora, it's a first step. In an academic setting like this. I also know that a lot of our general practitioners in hospitals are confronted with people that are responding to issues of insecurity without knowing it. A lot of somatic manifestations of psychological distress tend to manifest in these individuals in various forms. And then these practitioners are usually the first point of call for these people when these issues come up. Religious leaders also, and like reverends, pastors, imams, and the rest of them. These are people that need to also be equipped to understand some of these mental health associations with insecurity, because they are almost always involved in insecurity issues within their communities. Now, by doing that, we build their resilience. In addition to that, we also need to look at individual focus, group focus, and population-wide approaches. Individual focus approaches are these issues I've talked about, a one-on-one approach between clinical psychologists, and please, sorry, you have to excuse my little dog, between clinical psychologists and other mental health experts and their clients and their patients, while population-wide focus can utilize existing information dissemination structures like National Orientation Agency, professional associations, to be able to disseminate the relationship between insecurity and psychological manifestations. Now, with better psychoeducation, better information at the disposal of people, people will have better resilience to some of these effects. And then I also want to mention an instrumental or a problem-focused coping style. For example, if you had enough lighting in front of your house at the time you stepped out and saw someone approaching in the dark, and you have enough lighting along the streets, for instance, you might have noticed that this person that's approaching you may have even been a vigilante or a policeman or someone we should feel safe with. If you have enough security measures around us, if we have enough around us and we are taught enough of that, it will also help to build our ability to feel confident in ourselves and in our safety. And then also to learn to trust our environment. Some of the security measures include lighting at home, dogs, which security experts will tell you are often more reliable than human beings when it comes to your home or domestic security, vigilance, what's happening in your neighborhood, being involved in activity that will heighten security awareness and security preparedness within the neighborhood, in addition to the aspects of psychological management. We also need to be more security conscious and prepared. This will also build our psychological resilience and confidence in our safety. There are several other things. We could take an example, for example, of what was done in Rwanda after the disaster that took place there several years ago. They used a community-based approach to try to rebuild people's confidence in themselves, to try to rebuild social institutions in terms of the natural, cultural, social institutions that make people interact with one another, talk to one another. Those that are victims of security challenges have an opportunity to recount their stories, tell their trauma story over and over again in comfortable environments, unthreatening environments, and also learn from others coping styles that have been effective and also other ways of coping. There's a lot of talk about religious and cultural coping styles that help. Embedded in our cultures and religions are some of these things. So if we tend to strengthen these, not only by approaching only the clinical manifestations, but also the social or psychosocial challenges and approaches to build resilience as well as cope with this insecurity, psychological fallout on a population-wide scale. These might help to support the clinical approaches.
Thank you so much, sir. What I hear Dr. Adole say is that there are so many approaches that we could use. Why that last statement actually got me, and that we need not just deal with the clinical issues alone, the community approaches and allowing people to help, peer support, even the society could help them to be able to function adequately. And more importantly, it helps people to build resilience. I'm still going to come back on this issue of resilience because I don't understand. Maybe you would now just explain to us more on what resilience is in the face of, I don't know, maybe you don't understand, in the face of news, constant news every day. I don't know how we're going to be able to move and deal with all of that. All right, but then I'm going to come back to you on that. Dr. Damilola Aliu, I didn't even know that somebody had also asked the same question that I had in mind on the chat box. Thank you, Mrs. Caroline Obaso. She also said, beautiful presentation, but can you further explain what is meant by moving around with what if? So it's like an addition to my question that yes, every day it's just there in your face, staring you in the face. So how can you go around with what if when it's just like it's the news virtually every day? I stop listening to the news early in the morning again because that's the only thing you seem to hear virtually every day. So how do we move around with that? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Akintoye. Like I said we should focus on what is and not what if. And what do I mean by that? Is a form of coping strategy. I take, for instance, a real life situation of what you painted about leaving your house when it was dark and you running back into the house. Your reaction to what you saw was not because of reality. It's because of your assumption, right? And that is to show that you are already reacting or having cognitive reaction to the secondary trauma of this insecurity situation that you are currently experiencing in your neighborhood, okay? And if you continue to move with this sense of what if that person is about to attack me, you will be affecting your mental health. Before you know it, a sense of paranoia will start setting in where you will be overly suspicious of everyone or everything or every movement around you. So the idea of cognitively protecting yourself, your psyche, psychologically is move with what you can see for now and stop anticipating negativity, okay? It is a good way to walk through in any difficult time or situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Damilola Aliu, for that. I recall 2 weeks ago, thereabout, we had to travel for a family function. And coming from virtually all over the country, my siblings and I, there was so much fear. And we went and we actually came back and nothing happened.
And
but
nothing
before
happened.
we actually traveled, nothing happened. But before we traveled, it was like something was going to happen. So I can't understand exactly what is it that you're talking about. Nothing happened, but man, before we went, hey, oh God, you could see fire. Thank God that we did not contact Dr. Olukoya to help us pray. Otherwise, okay. So thank you so much for that explanation. That has helped. Dr. Mrs. Ambassador, I hope that also helped your question too. All right, Dr. Adole, there's a question here for you. Is there any way loss of a loved one can pose a primary or secondary emotional, maybe emotional problem? That question wasn't completed, but can pose a primary or secondary emotional reaction or problem for any individual, at least the person that had been left. Dr. Adole, can you take us?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, the loss of a loved one is one of the most traumatic experiences associated with psychological distress in the survivors. The loved one can be a sibling, a spouse, or someone that is nearby, that is close to the individual's heart. In the military, it can also be a colleague during combat. And we all know from the works of well-known psychiatrists like General Oloche and several others, we have all seen the reality of survival guilt. Sometimes it is so bad that even the survivors, for instance, when you have, let's say, a kidnapping in a home, and in the process, a loved one is killed during that kidnapping episode, and the rest of the people survive. If the loved one that is killed happens, happens to be a spouse or a child, the survivor, in this case, maybe the breadwinner or the parent, can have such extreme survival guilt that the individual might require hospitalization. So yes, loss of a loved one can take a huge toll. It can also really bring out even the issue of the theory of shattered assumptions, where you inherently are supposed to trust your environment, trust in the integrity and the goodness of other people. So loss of a loved one has been shown to be one of the outcomes of insecurity that has the most psychological impact on survivors or on people.
Thank you, sir. I said earlier I was going to take you up on the question about resilience. I want us to be so that we're on the same page, because some of our viewers or people on the platform are not mental health experts. So when we're talking about resilience, it's like adapting to the pressure, adapting to the pain, being able to weather the storm and every other thing. Are we saying, yes, build resilience? When we heard news like that, it doesn't get at all. So what exactly are you saying when we talk about building resilience, even when we talk about mental health and security issues, sir?
Yes, the issue of resilience, well, from its very basic definition, putting it very simply, the resilience, in this case now, the ability to bounce back, the ability to recover from a traumatic experience. This ability to recover from a traumatic experience is associated with several factors. In addition to the individual factor of the individual's health, the individual's pre-trauma mental integrity, we also have the social and wider population factors. For instance, in an individual who has a good family network, good family relations, or good relations with neighbors may be able to recover faster than one who doesn't. In an environment where the insecurity leads to loss of life, and you have people that are bereaved in a home, the ability of neighbors, family members to come in the aid and support of that individual goes a long way in enabling that person to return back to normal functioning, normal productive functioning of carrying out their daily duties and not becoming a psychological casualty. So that is basically what the resilience and the approach of resilience is all about. And there are several factors to this. The ability to even instill good health, to return the person to normal health. Someone who is physically injured, maybe with a major defect resulting from the trauma, from the traumatic experience or from the insecurity. Someone who is shot and loses a limb or an eye and has no hope of having a prosthesis or recovery may not have as much resilience as someone who receives adequate attention in that aspect. And it goes on and on. Being able to restore normal sleep, something as basic and fundamental as sleep function, good appetite alone is a significant resilience factor. If you are unable to return to normal pre-trauma experience sleep patterns, it also reduces the ability of individuals to recover from such trauma and such a psychological fallout of insecurity. And this in turn predisposes the individual to further psychological sequelae. So these are some of the examples that we can give in association with resilience.
Thank you so much, sir. I hear you, sir. I understand what you have just said to us now. I'm still going to come back to you because I am asking the question that a lot of people are asking. Somebody just said here, but in the current situation as has, cognitive stability will be in doubt when many people who we thought were cognitively stable have been kidnapped, including traditional rulers with some level of security guards. No Nigerian, especially those living in the northern states, can be anxiety-free. I don't know if you get that now. And that's the feeling, that's the thought of quite a lot of people. Because yes, maybe some few months back or maybe a year back or so, we thought we were very safe in Lagos because it's not moving close to us. It's just in the north, in the core north. But what is happening now has shown that it's not just about the north again. They go into, you don't even have to be walking on the road before you were kidnapped. Now you are sleeping in your house and they enter. And when somebody hears that, you lock your door, put chain, put the dog outside, put iron bar, put every other thing, and padlock yourself even to the bed. You know that they can still get you out if they want to get you out. And so how do we get on with all of this? And these are some of the questions that a lot of people are asking. How do we deal with this and be able to, pull back to normal functioning? And that's the question here, sir.
Okay, good. Now, one of the challenges that we are faced with in this country and also in many other parts of the world is the challenge of information dissemination. When you hear only a certain type of, when you are exposed to only a certain type of information for protracted periods of time, that becomes the only existing reality. Now, just today, this morning, I'll give an example if time will permit. Just this morning, I was listening to the news, and in a very obscure segment of the news, which I am sure nobody in this forum presently may have heard, in a small part of Plateau State in north-central Nigeria, particularly in a town called Jingri, not far from another town called Saminaka, which is a major confluence town in that part of the country. A group of people, 13 people, stormed the house of a local businessman with the intention of kidnapping him and his family. Now the community mobilized with their vigilante and other community members, surrounded that house, prevented those people from escaping with those people, and actually got them arrested. Some of them escaped, but they were able to apprehend 7 of them, 7. Now, what brought up the news this morning was that those 7, this happened sometime in March, those 7 people were remanded in custody until today, and they went to court with a lawyer asking for their bail. And the judge declined to give that bail, remanding them in custody till October for the substantive hearing. They were arrested with weapons and all that. They made confessions, talked about where they got some of the weapons and the people that got them. Now, this information is not on the news. And several others, I can go on and on because I am involved in security network communications. So I get to know some of these things and several other achievements by Nigerians, not just security personnel, ordinary Nigerians every day, showing what Nigerians can do, what ordinary people can do. Now, when this type of thing gets on the media, it strengthens and encourages people and helps communities in other areas who may not yet have been affected to know that these things are possible. This has a direct positive impact on the psychology of those individuals. So this doesn't solve the entire problem. This, together with actually eliminating the cause of the threat, will go a long way in solving the problem. But you'll agree with me that the more the media projects the actual achievements by both security operatives and Nigerians, the more other Nigerians will feel safe. So I think part of what we need to do also as mental health experts and professionals is to channel some of our resources towards enlightening and encouraging media practitioners to cover these kind of things more as their own contribution to population-wide mental health strategies.
Thank you so much. That was very brilliant and really, really brilliant because, you know, it just speaks to the fact that maybe there are things that we're not doing right. Yes, we capitalize more on the negative, bringing down some the positives, and that's in a fact doesn't even allow us to know that there's so much that we can do. And it leads to what Dr. Damilola Aliu said earlier about the fact that a lot of people feel helpless even in this situation. So thank you so very much there. Dr. Damilola Aliu, one of the things that we know about this security thing is also a function of perception, how people feel in times like this. But then how can we better enhance people's feeling to be more positive in times like this? Individual tips that people can adopt that will help them to be able to feel much better. Dr. Adole earlier on, I know he's talked about the positive coping skills, but maybe we just need to reiterate it so out for people out there that they can understand and they know how best to be able to deal with some of those things when they are confronted with it.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. To further help people's reaction or to help their mental health, the responsibility comes from the government and also from the individuals. I'll go, let me mention what the government, or state some of what the things that the government can put up to actually help people in this state of insecurity. A lot of Nigerians need reassurance. We need to be sure that we are being piloted by people that actually know what they are doing, okay? So the government needs to reassure the citizenry that we are safe. So when we have this sensitization program, okay, public sensitization, like Dr. Adole said, it will further boost our confidence level in our security agents or security agencies. When good information or positive information on our successes that they have achieved are being put forward alongside the insecurity, there will be a sense of what balance in the information that we get, okay? So we need to be assured or reassured about the safety of our children in school. We need to be assured as parents. Women need to feel safe, to be sure that they will not be walking on the road and they could be victims of rape and so on and so forth. Also, we are responding as people who are experiencing the secondary trauma. For those who are directly involved, psychosocial interventions, programs. I know a lot of work is being done in IDPs camp, and for few people that have experienced insecurity one way or the other, but a lot still needs to be done by ensuring that these people get the right help that they needed to get as a result of displacement that most of them have experienced. Some of us in traffic, little things like phone, laptops are being stolen, and we wallow on that for days or for months. So imagine people who have lost their livelihood, their homes, lost their families, or their sense of belonging. So I think the government still needs to do a lot in terms of psychosocial intervention in helping citizens on this issue of insecurity. Then conflicts are better resolved or addressed by critically looking at the reasons for the emergence. Okay, let the government look more into the reasons for all this emergence, the Boko Haram, the bandits. To some extent, some can be handled at the level of the socioeconomic, political, or religious. So when we look at some of these issues critically, it can further help Nigerians to have some sense of security. And then concerning individuals, this is not our responsibility as citizens. It is not a time to display our affluence. It is not a time to be careless. It is a time for everyone to be very observant of their environment. If you notice some strange movements or people that are generally not supposed to be in your environment or that you perceive as threats, kindly call the necessary authority to do that. We hold the government that responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Damilola Aliu, for that. Dr. Atibioke, thank you for your comment. Environment is an external factor to a man, but a major determinant of health. This cannot be exonerated from the mental health situation in Nigeria now. We quite agree with you. Dr. Peter Olowe, thank you. Beautiful response there on resilience. Dr. Nocha, beautiful presentation from Abayomi, and from Olabode Mola, we are living in a bubble and we hope it doesn't burst soon. Amen. My take is, let us reduce our exposure to bad news, be security conscious of our environment, and get to know our neighbors and do what is legally possible to protect ourselves. I want to touch on one thing before we just begin to think of wrapping up, and that's the issue of the economic situation too. Don't we think that also has a major role to play? Dr. Oloche, what do we think that has a lot of ability, to play in what we're looking at now? People claim, yes, there's no money out there, and so everybody wants to do whatever it is to get in and just enjoy their life. What do you think we can do about that, sir?
Yes, thank you very much. It's the effect of the economy or economic downturn generally on mental health is something that various scholars have studied, and it's very obvious. And it's not far-fetched. Your economic security impacts on your food security, on your sense of self-worth, and so many other things, your ability to be sure about the future. However, I think one of the ways to strengthen that, I still go back to the issue of instrumental coping styles. One of the ways to strengthen that is also to build methods of improving personal economy. Just yesterday, I saw an advertisement. I can't remember one of the, an agency was advertising. And what they depicted was a young man who cooked food, very delicious food early in the morning, enough to wake people up from sleep, using some dried fish and some other things. And then apparently, this 30-second advertisement was able to demonstrate that this young man is known as a very good cook and has been going all over the place looking for a job, and then sits somewhere and then observes that somebody does delivery to that office while he was waiting for an interview for this job. And the idea now came to him that, wait, I can cook very well. Why don't I open my own cooking and delivery system using my brother's motorcycle? And then the business started from there. And already the government has put in place several approaches. We talk about the vice president talking about it all the time. Several approaches that young people and Nigerians can access support systems to support good ideas, business ideas. And that coupled with improving the employment situation. And each and every Nigerian really, particularly those of us who are at this level of the society, can contribute to improving the to reducing the unemployment by creating opportunities for others through various ideas. I think that the best way really is to physically improve the economy. If you are going to reduce the mental, you can't tell somebody to assume he's not hungry when he's hungry, or to change, to cognitively restructure his appreciation of hunger, or his ability to pay his children's school fees. That can be done. So we just have to tackle it through solving the actual problem. That is within the time limits that we have that I have. I think that's the much I can say on that for now.
Thank you so much, sir. Showing gratitude for hunger, it's really not so possible. I can imagine that. Technopop, thank you, beautiful presentation. Well, Sam. All right, so someone's showing appreciation to Dr. Adole and Dr. Damilola Olayinka-Aliu. Caroline Obasoro, thank you for the educative and instructive presentation. Great to have you. YABA Voice, thank you, ma'am, for always being on this call with us. From Mrs. Damilola, good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate everyone who has taken out time to join us today on this important discussion. Please note that the recording of this webinar will be on the Facebook page and also will be there on the Instagram page. And then we'll also have it put up on the YouTube page so people can also go back and listen to it whenever they can. Yeah. We'll be taking last thought from our presenters on what's the take home for people who have been on this call with us today. We'll start with Dr. Damilola Olayinka-Aliu. What's your closing thoughts on this topic today?
Yes, thank you very much. This has been a very impactful topic. I've also benefited, even though I'm one of the speakers. I've learned a lot, and then we need more of this in creating awareness in our larger community. Okay, if we can have a better audience or a bigger audience where our work can actually go out there more for people to know the good job we are doing. Thank you once again, the hospital management, for giving me this opportunity. I take it not for granted. I appreciate everyone. I appreciate the medical director. I appreciate Dr. Adole. I appreciate the moderator and every clinical psychologist out there. God bless you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Damilola Olayinka-Aliu, for that. We would always love to have you come back and be a presenter here. Yes, for everyone showing appreciation, thank you. To Dr. Adole, let's take your last remark on this topic discussion.
Thank you very much. And I must thank the organizers and the hosts for this wonderful opportunity. I'm thoroughly better educated from the questions and then also from the comments. And I really appreciate your inviting me to speak on this. On a departure note, I just want to encourage our speakers, because some of the questions tend to point towards some level of heightened suspiciousness and others, which is natural. I just want to encourage us to actually be less suspicious, particularly less suspicious of groups, and to reduce our suspiciousness of groups that may be different from us, and then also to reduce our negative thoughts, particularly to combat our automatic negative thoughts that might just pop in, as examples have shown, and also to minimize negativity and maximize positivity. This might help on a more general scale. And once again, I want to thank you so much and appreciate everyone for this. Dr. Damilola, thank you for also educating us so much on the clinical aspects. I will reserve my other comments, being that we're already on a global scale stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Adole. I hear you say, yes, we should be more accepting. Yes, even when they are different from us in terms of maybe name and color or the language, that does not mean that they are evil in code. And so we shouldn't go with that notion. Otherwise, it will become more damaging and destructive to our functioning Yes, negative thoughts should be minimized as much as possible. What is the reality rather than what if, and that brings on an anticipation of fear and worries or even scenarios that may never happen, and that might take us down more psychologically. And then we should minimize negative information, maximize positive ones. Yes, people have been able to get out, people have been able to defend themselves, and let's do everything humanly possible. I heard Dr. Adole's dog, I don't know if it is his dog, barking in the background, and I was saying to myself, maybe I actually need a dog too, you know, in the context of what is happening.
It's one of my dogs. One of my dogs. There are several. It's
dogs.
one of. That's the indoor dog. That's the one inside the house.
So you have indoor, you have outdoor.
Yes, we have outdoor dogs and indoor dogs.
I'm going to look into this myself. All right.
Security,
so thank you so
these are
much.
security measures.
All right. So we could hear from somebody who is also a security expert telling you go and get dogs. So
yes, please.
they don't let the cost of dog go higher than some of us can be able to down to. Okay. All right, so on this note, I want to say thank you to our speakers for being on this call with us. Thank you to everyone who has joined. Please spread the message out there. YABA Voice is trying to do as much as they can in helping people understand and be better able to manage their mental functioning. And that's why we're looking at this topic today. And significantly for us, YABA Voice started in about a year ago. By the 22nd of July, we will actually be one. And we have been able to do so much. We are grateful to God for what we have been able to do even in the space of this 1 year. And so we'll be having a special webinar next week, Thursday, exactly 12 noon, to celebrate this landmark. For us, this landmark, we've been able to just push through despite everything. And then we'll be doing a special webinar, or we'll be having a special webinar next week, Thursday, to talk more about mental health issues, technology world, the social media, and what are the challenges, what are the achievements, and what more can we do? And that's what we'll be focusing on. It's a special webinar that we implore to please join us. And I will say, this webinar recording is going to be on the social media platform, on the Facebook, on the Instagram, and then we'll also have it on the YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this call. Hope to see you next week by God's grace. Until then, please stay safe out there. Don't do what would put you out in danger. And if you need help, please shout, call, do whatever it is that you can do to get yourself out of a terrible situation. Watch your thoughts. Don't go about with negative thoughts. Go around with positivity. We can always go out and come back each day, and then maximize the positive rather than the negative. And on this note, I want to say thank you. Take care of yourself. Happy, lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Double thumbs up. Bye-bye.